I finally got the opportunity to get back out on the trails for some runs, which means I finally got the opportunity to take my first run in my new Altra Lone Peak 5s, and I am here with my initial thoughts. Cheers, y'all. How's it going? If you have been following the channel for a while, you know I have been dealing with the ups and downs of coming back from IT band syndrome, coming back from injury, but I am finally back to running and starting to slowly build up that base, and I finally got the opportunity to take my Altra Lone Peaks out for a spin. I was certainly nervous for the first run, having only ever done trail runs in one other pair of shoes in the past. Those trail shoes got me through countless miles, including my first ever ultra marathon at the Bandera 100K, but they have also taken a beating along the way, so I knew before the challenges that I have lined up for this year, I needed to upgrade to a new pair, and heard from a ton of folks just how much they love the Altra Lone Peaks, how great of a shoe it is, and so far, spoiler alert, I couldn't agree more. This is a great shoe, but I will get into those specifics here in a minute. Real quick, if this is your first time on the channel, I hope you'll give this video a thumbs up just to help other people find it as well, and if you enjoy it, I hope you'll go ahead and click that subscribe button and stick around for future videos as well. With that out of the way, let's get into some of the specifics of the shoe. Just quick to mention, these are shoes that I purchased with my own money. They weren't sent to me or anything like that. Like I said, I just have a couple of trail runs coming up this year and needed a new shoe to get me through those races. So decided on the Altra Lone Peaks after they were recommended by pretty much anyone that I asked for a solid shoe recommendation. What I really like just from reading the overall description is that these are a moderate cushion. So they're not overly padded. They're still relatively flexible. The material is very lightweight, nothing too crazy, enough to protect your shoes. You need that extra protection on the trail, but I also still want my feet to feel free on the run. I want to feel the flex in my foot. I still want to feel connected to the ground as I run, but obviously want that little added protection against any kind of stones, stumps, roots, etc. that I might come across when I'm out running. So I mentioned these aren't overly cushioned. Weight-wise, they're only 11.1 ounces. That's less than an ounce heavier than some of my road shoes that I run in, some of my more cushioned road shoes. So like I said, not too much extra material, nothing crazy here. You can definitely tell running in them that they're heavier than your traditional road shoe, but like I said, it's not too noticeable. You get used to the feeling very easily. I didn't feel like these were weighing me down or anything like that. Very, very comfortable on the run, and I will gladly take on a little bit more weight in the shoe in exchange for that extra cushioning, that extra padding that's going to keep my feet protected longer on those longer duration runs. As far as the stack height of the shoe, you can tell it's not overly substantial. Again, there are definitely road shoes that have more foam, more cushioning than these, something that I appreciate about the shoe, but the overall stack height of the shoe is 25 millimeters. But as with all Altra shoes, it's a 0 millimeter drop from heel to toe. So your heel and toe are at the same level. You just have 25 millimeters of cushion between your foot and the ground. And then the last thing I'll mention about the specs of the shoe is as far as the material they use for the upper, it's their quick dry air mesh material. It's very lightweight, incredibly breathable, very thin mesh. And you can see some of the vents in here as well so that the shoe can breathe while you're out on the run. Again, something that I really appreciate. Again, more vents on the front as well. I think that especially helps contribute overall to the lightweight nature of the shoe itself. With specs out of the way, now onto the important part, my actual experience running in these shoes. So as I mentioned, I've only taken these out for one run. It was just under 10 miles out on trail. Nothing too crazy with elevation, pretty well kept, well-mannered trails. But the first thing and main thing I really want to focus on with this shoe is just how comfortable it is. That in and of itself is ultimately why I decided to go with the Lone Peak. I had a list of a few models that I wanted to go try. When I went to go try on different shoes, it was immediately apparent just slipping this on how much more comfortable for me it was than some of the other shoes I was thinking about. Even with the extra protection, I like that it's not overly protected, overly cushioned. I like still feeling like I'm connected to the ground. I will say some of the other shoes that I tried on, not going to mention specific brands or models or anything, but putting those on, it literally felt like there was just a plate straight down the middle of the shoe, no flex in the foot at all. I understand why you may want that, especially for some more rugged trails, but personally, it just felt so unnatural and so uncomfortable to me. I really, really appreciated being able to wear the shoe and still being able to feel some of the details of the ground. Another comfort piece, this is not my first ever pair of Altras. I had a pair of Altra Escalantes, which is one of their road shoes, which I really enjoyed. And something that I came to love about Altras is the open toe box and kind of foot shape. I guess you can see it a little bit better from the sole side, that they have a foot shape to their shoes. It doesn't come to a narrow point at the top like most running shoes you may be familiar with. It splays out instead so that when your foot's inside the shoe, your toes can spread out, your feet can spread out, you don't feel as cramped, especially for those longer duration ultra runs. Your feet can swell a little bit, things like that. So if a shoe already feels cramped to begin with, that's only gonna get worse and worse throughout the run. So again, just love the flex in the shoe, the flex in the material, and the fact that I have this extra open space in the front so my feet just feel so much more comfortable in the shoe right from the start. In terms of the experience, as I started running, I will say right at the start, the shoe obviously felt stiffer than what I'm used to, because I'm used to a much looser, much more minimalist road running shoe that has a little bit more flex. Obviously, these just naturally are a bit stiffer because of the added cushion that you want on trail, but that was more of just something that I needed to get used to, needed to adapt to. I felt it especially like the material in the toe felt a little bit stiff in the first mile or so, not as much flex as what I'm used to, not as loose of a mesh as I might be used to, but within the first mile, that feeling went away again. I think part of it was just breaking in a new pair of shoes and getting used to that feeling. In a similar vein, this is a weird thing to list as a pro, but very early on in the run, I would say within the first 3 miles, my legs actually felt a little bit more sore than I'm used to, especially in some of those stabilizing muscles. Again, something that you're gonna experience more on trails because you're just not on even terrain. So those stability muscles, those balance muscles are having to do a lot more work than you would have to do on a flat, even road surface. But why I say that's a pro is because throughout those 3 miles, I was very aware of, again, the flex of the shoe, not feeling like I was in these rigid, structured shoes, but feeling very free on the trail, being able to feel the actual terrain that I was running across. I mentioned that's something that I really appreciate about a solid pair of trail shoes. Although it meant that my muscles might have been a little bit more sore early on, again, that loosened up very easily after about that 3 mile mark. The last thing I'll mention about the experience of the run itself just has to do with the sole. So again, you can see a relatively durable sole. It's got their trail claws to really grip the ground. I was running, it had stormed not super recently, but still a pretty substantial amount of mud on the trails that I was dealing with. These grip the ground really well. I had no issues with slippage or anything like that, running through puddles, etc. These just really dig into the dirt and grab on, so you get that really, really good traction. But something that I appreciated about these that weren't necessarily the case with my last pair of trail shoes is, although they really sink into the mud and grab that mud, as soon as you release and take that step, the mud clears the sole. Some other shoes that I've run in tend to gather mud between the treads and things like that. It just kind of gunks it up, adding to the weight of the shoes. These had no issue with that at all. Again, like I said, it really gripped into the earth, but as soon as you lifted your foot off, all that fell away, so you didn't have to deal with any kind of extra bulky weight of mud sticking and gripping onto the shoe. Fingers crossed that with the 4-state challenge and the Mohican 100-miler, that mud won't be too big of a factor, but you can never be too sure. So I am happy that these shoes can deal with it if that is the case. And really, I'm just so excited to continue to log miles with these. I'll definitely be taking them out for another trial run this weekend. And then next weekend is that 4-state challenge, that 43-mile run on the Appalachian Trail. So they will definitely be broken in by that point. So that's it for my initial thoughts on the Altra Lone Peak 5s. As always, I'll be back with another review to see how they're holding up after 100 miles, although it may take me a little while to cross that threshold, so stay tuned. If this is your first time on the channel, as I mentioned, I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, I hope you'll click that subscribe button, and I hope you'll give this video a thumbs up to help other folks find it as well. I feel like everything is starting to come together in preparation for this 4-state challenge, although I am certainly still as nervous as ever to get started, but getting my first run in the ultras definitely helped my confidence boost a little bit, knowing that I have good shoes to carry me across those 43 miles. But thanks as always for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you around. Cheers.